We begin today on the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Daled Amud Beis, the bottom of the Yamud. This is a continuation actually of the previous Mishnah, speaking about a person that's selling a piece of land, a certain size, a base kor. A base kor is 30 saw. And here the person used different lashonos in the sale, and the Mishnah will explain how we understand what are the terms of the sale. Zok Deilige Mishnah, Mida bechevel ani meichalach. A person is selling a base kor offer, an area that's the size of a base kor. And first he says that I'm selling it to you that it's exact. You measure it with a Kuf Dalet Amud Beis. Yeah. So he's selling a Mida bechevel, meaning mamish exact with a rope that it should be measured as is. Then afterwards he said hein chaser, hein yeser. That it may be missing a little bit from the size, it may be a little bit over the size. So here he says that it's going to be approximate, not exact. So what's the story? What do you do? So in such a case, batul hein chaser hein yeser mid bechevel. The second expression that he said, hein chaser hein yeser, that it may be missing or a little bit more than the amount, that's mevatel, the first lashon that he said that it's going to be exact. The point here is that you follow the second expression that he said. When a person says two things that are contradicting one another, this is the concept of tfois lashon achrein. You take the second thing that he said, and that's what he meant seriously, and what he said before, he was chayzer from that. A person says two things, teichedei dibur, you go with the last lashon. Now, if it's the opposite, if first he said, hein chaser, hein yeser, that it's going to be approximate, maybe missing a little, maybe a little more, and then afterwards he says, Mida bechevel, no, it's going to be exact, you can measure it with a rope. Then we go with the second lashon, batul, Mida bechevel. The second lashon he said that it's going to be exact, it's going to be mevatel, hein chaser, hein yeser. The lashon that he said in the beginning, that it's going to be approximate, we go by the last lashon he said, divrei ben nanes. This is the opinion of ben nanes. In the previous Mishnah, in the Gemara before, it brought all the details, the halachas. When you say that it has to be exact, and if it's off even a drop, then you have to give that back to the meicher, or if it's less, then the meicher has to or he has to deduct from the pay. But if you say hen chaser hen yeser, so in such a case, up to amount of a roiva of a kav to a saw, if it's a little over in that amount, we say that it's a mechila because he used this term of yeser or chaser. Okay, that's Taich the Mishnah. This is Ben Nanas' opinion that we follow the lashon achrein, the last lashon the person said.
Yes, that means more or less.
Yeah.
So it's not
approximate. This the Gemara brings. Amar Bava Bar Mamol, Amarav Cholken Olav Chaverov al Benanas. The friends of Benanas, the Chachamim, they argued on Benanas, and they hold that in such a case where a person uses these two contradictory terms, we say that it's not clear what this person is saying, and it's a suffix. In the case of a suffix, the halacha will be yachleiku, that you have to divide. So in such a case here where he gave him extra and it's not clear if he's supposed to get that extra or he's not supposed to get the extra, so you divide it because of the suffix that there is regarding the two expressions that he said. That's the opinion of the Chachamim. Says the Gemara, "My kamash malon." What's the chiddush here in the halacha that it says in our Mishnah and the halacha that we're saying that the Chachamim disagree with this? Tanina, we learned this already clearly in the Mishnah in Masechta Bava Metzia. The Mishnah there says, Maisa b'Tzipairi. There was a story in the city Tzipairi. Be'echad shesacha merchatz mechaveirei. A person rented a bathhouse from his friend, and here as well, two different expressions were said. First, he said, "B'shneim asa zuvim l'shana." I'm renting this to you for 12 gold coins for the year. So he said in the beginning, for the whole year, one amount, 12 gold coins. But then he says that means dinner zav l'chodesh. It's one gold coin, one dinner for each month. And so there's a big difference between these two expressions. What happens if now the year is a leap year? It's a Shana Muberes and not as a 13th month. So do you follow the first lashon that he said, which is to the benefit of the renter, that he said for the year, 12 gold coins for the year, even if it's a leap year? Or no, do you follow the second lashon he said, that it has to be one dinner for each month, and therefore it's for the benefit of the landlord, that in such a case you're going to have to add another gold coin. So this story, this question came in front of Rab Shimon Gamliel and Rab Yaisi, and they said that what do you do in such a case? That extra month in the leap year, you have to divide that month between the renter and the landlord. He's going to pay only half of the rent for that month. So here we see, this is the opinion of the Chachamim, which is Rab Shimon Gamliel and Rab Yaisi, that say that because he used these two expressions, we don't go like Bananas that says that you follow the second expression he said, Tfais Lashon Achrin. Rather we say it's a suffix, and because it's a suffix, Yachloiku, we divide that month which is in question. So it's the same halacha that we're saying here, and that Rav says here. Why did Rav have to say this regarding our Mishnah if it's a clear Mishnah in Masechta Bava Metzia? So the Gemara explains, no, we can't learn from there. We can't compare that case to our case. Why? If it was only that case by the bathhouse, I would think to say that in that case, Hasam, who the Ikalemema Mehedeka Hodebe, the Ikalemema Perushi Kamafarish. Over there, in that case by the bathhouse, when a person says these two expressions, first he said that it should be a 12 dinner for the entire year, and then afterwards he says a dinner is off for each month. There's a reason why there's a suffix. Why in that case Chachamim say there's a suffix and we don't take the last lashon. Why? Because there's two ways how to understand. Why did he then add and say dinner zav l'chodesh? Either the reason is because he's retracting. You should take the second lashon. He said first one thing, but then when he said the second lashon of dinner zav l'chodesh, he's actually having charata, and now he's saying I want a gold coin for each month. That's one way to understand it. But you could also say Pirushik Mefarish. What does Pirushik Mefarish mean? When he said first, give me 12 gold coins for the entire year, so then the renter will think that he only has to pay rent at the end of the entire year. He doesn't have to pay rent for each month. Usually you pay rent at the end of the month of your rental, or at the end of the time of your rental. So if you only said the first lashon, then the renter would come and pay rent at the end of the year. You said 12 gold coins for the entire year. So therefore, Perusha Kamefarish, he's coming and clarifying, no, I want the rent to be paid at the end of each month. But he's not taking back what he said in the beginning, that it's 12 coins for the entire year, including if it's a Shana Mu'aberes. He only came to clarify this detail when the rent should be paid, that it should be paid at the end of the month. So in such a case, there's a suffix here. If you should say that he was retracting from what he said in the beginning, or he wasn't, then he just came to clarify this detail of when the rent is paid. There, Chachamim say it's a suffix, and you have to divide now when it comes to a year, when there's that leap year. But in our case, you can't. There's no room to explain that the second lashon that he said is being mefarish the first lashon. Over here, in our case, regarding these two expressions, the person says when he sells. First, he says it's going to be exact. Then he says no, it's going to be approximate. It's a contradiction. You can't say that the second lashon is coming to explain the first lashon. The vade kahadabe. Over here, he's definitely saying something different in the end than what he said in the beginning. So maybe I would say that over here the Chachamim do not argue on bananas. Maybe here they agree to him that you follow the second lashon, that the person had charata. So therefore Kamash Malon, that's why Rav came and explained that the reason why Chachamim argued on bananas is not because of this svara, that the suffix is based on the fact that maybe he's not having charata, maybe Purusha Kamefarish. That's not the reason. The reason they're having charata is because even in a case where you can't say Purusha Kamefarish, when a person uses two lashonos, according to Bananas, we always follow the second lashon, Tfais Lashon Achrin, and according to the Chachamim, it's a suffix. If Teich Kedei Dibur, a person is saying two lashonos, it's a suffix, and therefore, always, even in this case here, in this Mishnah, Rav is saying that according to the Chachamim, you're going to have to divide in a case where there's a suffix. Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel also said that Zu Divrei Bananas, that what it says here follows the opinion of Bananas. However, Chachamim disagree, and they say Halech Achar Pachasha B'Lashonos, that you follow the lashon that's going to be what's the least for the buyer, where the buyer is going to lose out more. The point over here is that according to Shmuel, he also holds, similar to what Rav said, that according to the Chachamim, when the person uses these two different expressions, it's a suffix what he meant. But in a case where it's a suffix, we're not going to say achleiku. We're not going to divide. Rather, in a case of a suffix, what we do is we say the one that's the muchsik, the one that has the chazakah on this, is the one that gets to keep it. So in a case where you're selling, or in a case where you're a renter, and there's this, let's over here regarding the case of a sale, right? Over here regarding the case of a sale, where there's a suffix, whether you follow the first lashon or the last lashon, who's the one that's the muchsik? Who has the upper hand? Who's the one that had this property first? The meicher, the seller. So therefore, in a case where you have a suffix, whether you should follow the lashon which says that it's going to be exact, the sale is going to be exact, or the lashon that he said that it's going to be approximate, which lashon do you use? Whatever is going to be for the benefit of the meicher. So if you gave him too much, and the meicher says, I want some back, it goes to the benefit of the meicher, that we say, he meant exact, so he gets back. If he gave too little, And so then we say, no, he said it's going to be approximate. So even if you gave him too little, you gave him less of that amount, it's again going to be to the benefit of the Meicher. Because the point here is, because it's a suffix, you follow the Chazakah. And the Meicher is the one that has the Chazakah. That's what Shmuel is saying here. Okay, so now the Gemara is medayik here from this lashon that Shmuel said, Zu v'loi svirelei. Is he saying the lashon of Shmuel is mashma zu divrei benanas? What it says here in the Mishnah, this is benanas. But Chachamim disagrees. So it's mashma that Shmuel himself does not agree to benanas. Is that true? But we know that Rav Shmuel Damri Tarvayu, Rav and Shmuel said another halacha regarding another case where we could see that both Rav and Shmuel actually seem to be holding like Ben Nanas' opinion. What's that case? In a case, we had this also before here in the Masechta, when a person says, Kor b'shloishim ani moichelach, I'm selling you an amount of a kor that is going to be for 30 coins. A kor is 30 sa, and I'm selling this to you for 30 coins. So he said it all in one lashon, the entire kor for 30 coins. And here we're talking about metaltla, a movable item. So in such a case, how do you acquire a movable item? By Meshicha, when you take it. So in such a case, so if you're taking one saw at a time, a small amount of it at a time, you're not taking it all at once. So because he told him that he's selling him one full core for 30 sela, so until you get that full, until you do the Meshicha on the entire thing, the sale is incomplete. The Meshicha has to be a full Meshicha on the whole thing. And the sale was on the whole thing at once. It was one core, you can't do a Meshicha on part of it. So until you do the full Meshicha in the end, you could still retract from the sale. However, if he used two different expressions, if he said first, core b'shloishim, that I'm selling you a full core for 30 coins, but then he spelled out, sa'ah b'sela, each sa'ah of this core is for a sela. So now in such a case, you follow the second expression that he said, sa'ah b'sela, sa'ah b'sela ani moichelach, so then, rishon kana, every saw that he took, he's going to be kind of with Meshicha, that saw right away. Why? Because you follow the second lashon that he said, that it's a sale for each saw separately. So what do you see from this? That both Rav and Shmuel say, when a person uses two expressions, Teich Kedei Dibor, you follow the second expression that he says, Lashon Achrei, like the opinion of Benanas. So how could it say here before that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Zu Divrei Benanas, but he himself disagrees with this. Here we see that he holds like Benanas. So Ella, therefore the Gemara retracts and says, Zu Usvirelei. That no, that really Shmuel, when he said this is the words of Benanas, he was saying this is Benanas' opinion, but he, Shmuel himself, holds like Benanas, that you always follow the second lashon that's used. But the Gemara asks in this, Misvirelei, is that true? Does Shmuel hold like Benanas? And here the Gemara goes back to the story, the Mishnah that we had before here from Bava Basra from the bathhouse. Regarding that Mishnah, what did Shmuel say? Shmuel said regarding that Mishnah, in that Mishnah itself, what did it say in the Mishnah? Rab Shimon ben Gamliel and Rab Yosi, what do they say? The halacha is that yachloiku, you divide. So Shmuel explains in that Mishnah, why do you divide? If the argument happens in the middle of the month, then you divide between them. If it's in the middle of the month, then you divide. If it's in the beginning of the month, then it all goes to the masker, the landlord, because he's the one that has the chazakah here. Again, the point of Shmuel is that in a case where it's a suffix, who do you go according to? The one that is the muhsik, who's the one that has now the status of being there. So if you come in the beginning of the month, it's before the rental began for that extra month, not as a doubt whether that extra month is included in the deal for 12 gold coins for the year. So the masker, the landlord, is the one that has the chazakah. It's his property. So before the month, before the rental begins, so then you're going to have to pay him an extra gold coin for that month. And b'soif ha'chodesh, but if it's at the end of the month, when the renter lived there already, and here the Rashbam says even if he didn't pay him yet for it, the Rashbam says he did pay him for it, upon him at the end of the month, after the renter lived there already, so now the renter is the one that has the chazakah. He already lived there. And now it's the landlord that wants to take payment from him, wants to take money out of him. So it's the renter that has the chazakah. Then kulul l'seicher. Then the seicher gets the entire thing. So we see over here clearly that Shmuel himself is explaining the Mishnah that the halacha of yachloiku of the Mishnah, it always follows the muhsik. The yachloiku is only because it was in the middle of the month. If Shmuel is explaining the Mishnah this way, it's mashma that Shmuel holds like this opinion, like the Chachamim in the Mishnah here. So how can we say that Shmuel holds like Benanas that says you always follow the Lashon Achra in the second Lashon that said The Rashbami brings it. There's another chiddush. The Gemara Bava Basra says this is another chiddush in what Shmuel is saying here, because there is another opinion there. When that is Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says that this concept that you follow the muhsik will not depend on what time of the month it is. According to Rav Nachman, the moicher, the seller, is always the muhsik. Karka b'cheskas balei kaima. He's the landlord. It's his house. It's his bathhouse. So even if it's at the end of the month after the renter lived there, but you lived in his bathhouse, it's really he's the one that always has the chazaka on this. So it doesn't matter. He's the landlord always has the upper hand over here. Taisvus actually over here addresses this concept that Shmuel says that if it's at the end of the month and the renter already lived there that extra month, then now the renter has the chazakah. Why should the renter have a chazakah on this? Usually the halacha is any situation where you have a suffix on something, you have money or an item, or in this case a piece of land, a bathhouse where there's a suffix about who owns it, and the renter went and lived there, even though it was a suffix. You're basically grabbing something which is already in doubt before you even lived there. How do you attain a status of being a muhsik when you grab something which was already in doubt before you went and took it? So Tosfos over here discusses this. In the end, Tosfos says that from our Gemara you see that this concept, you can't grab something and become a muhsik because it was already in doubt before you grabbed it, is only in a case where the one that grabs it is himself in doubt. He himself doesn't know whether it's his or not. He's saying, Shema, I'm not sure myself. But in this case, the case here is that the renter is saying that I'm telling you for a fact that we spoke about this, and the deal, the understanding of the language that was used was that I'm paying 12 gold coins for the entire year, including if there'll be a leap year. I don't have to pay extra for that extra month. He's saying, buddy, that I know for a fact this is what the deal was. In a case where he's tying that buddy that for a fact, then even if he grabs it after the time that was already a suffix, he becomes a muhsik on this. That's part of the chiddush of what Shmuel is saying here. Yeah, but the point here though is that you see that Shmuel disagrees with Benanas. He paskins like the Chachamim. That's the Lashon that's mashma that Shmuel is explaining the Chachamim, because he paskins like the Chachamim in the Mishnah. So therefore the Gemara Text says, Elo, Amid Beis. So really, Lo Olam, Zu v'loy svirulei. When Shmuel says that expression that Zu divrei Benanas, the term Zu take means that this is Benanas' opinion, but Shmuel himself does not hold of what Benanas said. And therefore, the pshat of here is as follows. The question the Gemara now has to explain is, so then why is it by that case that we brought before, when a person says, Kor b'shloishim, and then he said, Sa b'sela, over there it says that you follow Lashon Achrin. Over there it seems like Shmuel is paskening like Benanas. So the Gemara explains, no, it's not based on Benanas. It's all based on the Chachamim's opinion that it's a suffix, and you follow the chazakeh. So therefore we say as follows, V'hasam, taimemai, over there, by the bathhouse, the reason why you say that Yachleiku, you divide it, is Mishum de Tafis, because you see, if he was there for a half a month, so then he's already there for that half, so he grabbed half, so therefore you say Yachleiku. If he was there already for the full month, so he lived there the full month, so then the whole month is his. It goes according to the chazakah that the person is there. So it doesn't make a difference what lashon was first, what lashon was second. That's not the point there. If you use two lashonos, it's always going to be a suffix, whether you follow the first lashon or the second lashon. And therefore, you always follow the chazakah, toughest. Who's the one that is holding on to the money here? So Hachanami here as well, when it comes to this case, when the person said two lashonos in a sale, first he said, I'm selling you the full kor. And then afterwards he says, I'm selling you one saw at a time. And now the person, the buyer, took one saw at a time. Why do I say Rishain Kana, that one saw at a time that he took, he can keep that saw that he took? The reason is also because of toughest, because that one saw that he took, because it's a suffix, what was meant here, because two lashonos were used, so whatever he took is his. Has nothing to do with Benanas' opinion. It's not because of Lashon Achrin or Lashon Rishain. Doesn't matter what was said first or second. It's always going to be a suffix because two Lashonos were used. And whatever he's taifis, that's what's his. That's Shmuel's opinion. So as you see here, the maskan of the Gemara is that Shmuel does not hold like Benanas. Shmuel holds like the Chachamim, and you go according to the Chazakah. And what's the Chazakah? The one that's taifis. The one that has it now. He's the one that's the muhsik. As I mentioned, there is another opinion, which is Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says by the bathhouse that the muhsik is always the landlord. It's his property, so he is always the muhsik. Okay, but now here the Gemara comes back to Rav's own opinion. Amar Rav Huna said, Omri Bei Rav, it was said by the yeshiva of Rav. The Rashbam here explains that this refers to Rav Hamnuna that explained this in the yeshiva of Rav. He was a Talmud of Rav. So he explained and said, regarding another case where there's a contradiction in the two expressions that a person said in a sale. If someone wanted to buy something, and the seller first says, Astira, I'm selling it to you for the amount of an Astira. An Astira is a Sela Medina. It's a certain coin. The Rashbam goes through the whole cheshbon exactly of this coin, but the point is that this is a coin that has in it the value of 96 prutas. But then afterwards, the seller said, Meya moi, that I'm selling it to you for 100 moi, which is 100 prutas. So there's a discrepancy here. And first he said 96 prutas, which is the amount of an Astira, and then he says 100. Which one is it? So because he said the second Lashon Achrin was Meya Moi. So we go by the second Lashon that he has to pay 100 coins. That's the understanding of what the sale was for. If it's the opposite, if first the seller said Meya Moi, I want 100 coins, and then he said Astira, that only an Astira which is 96 coins, Astira. So then he only has to pay, like the second Lashon, which is only an Astira. So over here, you see that Rav is paskening like Ben Nanas, that you always go by the second Lashon. Says the Gemara, "My kamash malon." What is being said here in the name of Rav? It's teaching us that tfais lashon achrin, that you always go with the last lashon that the person said. Why does this halacha have to be taught in this scenario here regarding these two lashonis and the amount of money that the seller asked for? Didn't Rav say this already once? Because the Omar Rav, regarding the case of the bathhouse, Rav said, "Iyavoy hasam." If I was there, in that case where there was a suffix and the leap year, whether he has to pay an extra coin for that extra month or not. So Rav says regarding that case, I would follow the last lashon, and since in the last lashon that he said din l'chodesh, that for each month you have to pay another coin, so therefore I would give the landlord, according to the second lashon, the right to demand an extra coin for that extra month. So Rav over there, regarding the case of the bathhouse, clearly said that the landlord has the upper hand. Why? Because you followed Lashon Achrin. So why is Rav saying it again over here regarding this case of Meya Ma and Astira? So the Gemara answers, no, you can't compare the two cases. If it would only say the case of the bathhouse, and it would not say here, this story, this case of when the seller says these two expressions, the Astira and Meya Ma, then Hava Amine, that he's having charata from what he said in the beginning. But over here, I would say, that he's only coming to be mefarish. Okay, let me explain this again. There's two different perushim how to explain this. Here, let's first the pshat of what the Rashbam says. The Rashbam says as follows: if we would only say our case over here regarding the case of Moi and Astira, then I would say that he's clearly retracting from what he said in the beginning. It's two different amounts of money that he's asking for. First he's saying an Astira, then he's saying Meya Mo. In such a case, since it's clear that he's having charata from the price that he said in the beginning, so you go with Lashon Achrin. Aval Hacha, but over here, and the Hacha that it says here, according to the Rashbam, goes back on the case of the bathhouse. I would say, Ma'adatayme, Perushikam Mefarish, that over here, the second Lashon that's being said, the reason why I follow the second Lashon is because he's just coming to be Mefarish. When a person says that I want 12 gold coins for the entire year, and then afterwards he adds and says, a gold coin for each month, why do you have to look at this as being a contradiction? It's not necessarily a contradiction, since the fact is that there could be a leap year. That's why he added the second lashon, to clarify that in the case of a leap year, it's going to be a gold coin for each month. So the fact that Rav says regarding that case, that if I was there, I would paskin that the landlord is right, and he has right to demand a gold coin for each month, not necessarily because you always follow the second lashon when there's a contradiction between two lashonis that a person uses. There, the reason why Rav says you go according to the last lashon is because you can really say it's b'chlal, not a contradiction. He spelled out the second lashon exactly for this scenario, that it should be clear that if it's gonna be a leap year, you'll have to pay me a gold coin for each month. So therefore, Kamash Malon, therefore Rav, they taught in the yeshiva of Rav that Rav said this halacha regarding the case of Meya Moi and Astira, to say that even over here in this case where it clearly is a contradiction, that he asked for two different prices. So even here, you follow the second lashon that he said. The second lashon is the final price that he meant, not because the second lashon is coming to explain the first lashon. The second lashon is not coming to explain, but still you always follow the second lashon that the person said. That's the Rashbam's pshat here in this piece of Gemara. The Rashbam here brings from mighty V'Rabbeinu Zekeni Zatzal. This is one of the places in the Rashbam here where he quotes from his grandfather Rashi, that Rashi learned the pshat in the Gemara the opposite. Rashi said that over here regarding the case of Meya Moy and Astire, here actually it's possible to say that these two lashonos are not a contradiction to each other, because Astire and Meya Moy, Astire usually and Astire is 96 prutas, but not necessarily. The term Astire could also be Meya Moy. It could also be a full amount of 100. So therefore, Adarabah, the Gemara is trying to say that over here, regarding this case, when you use these two prices, and the two prices weren't clear, because Astira doesn't necessarily mean 96 coins. Over here you could say that he clarified and said Meya Moy to clarify what Astira means, or the same thing also on the opposite. Because these two prices that he gave were not a clear expression. Mashenkin, by the case of the bathhouse, he used two different lashonos that are contradictory to each other, and over there, you'll have to say that you follow the Lashon Achron. Over there, Rav was coming to say that you follow the Lashon Achron. That's the pshat of Rashi and Bava Basra. That's the opposite of the Rashbam's pshat, but the Rashbam doesn't accept this pshat. Over here, the Rashbam says that over here in the Gemara, regarding this story by the Astira and the Meya Moy, it's even in a case where the person didn't use the term Astira. Even if he clearly said 96 coins, and then he says, no, 100 coins. So over there, it's clear that it's a contradiction. You can't say that it's Purusha Mefarish. And therefore the Rashbam says that the pshat of the Gemara over here is that by the bathhouse, you could say that the second lashon is coming to be Mefarish the first lashon in a case of a leap year. But over here, regarding this case, Rav now taught it again, regarding this case, that it should be clear that he paskins like bananas, that you follow the Lashon Achren. That's the pshat in the Gemara according to the Rashbam. Now, the Rashbam concludes regarding this entire discussion regarding the bathhouse. We don't paskin not like Rav and not like Shmuel. We paskin like Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman, as I mentioned before, in Bava Basra says that it's the landlord that has the chazakah. He's the one that had the karkas in his possession. He's the owner of the land, and he always has the upper hand. That's what we paskin like in that case.